It's been so long since I've talked about Housamo, like literal years, so I'm gonna need to give some context for this. I'm streaming the entirety of Housamo's story, and this video is basically just a long ad for that, but then Deltarune came out, so I might be streaming that tomorrow instead. I've got no idea, but the script is already written, so I guess this is just what we're doing today. For those that don't know, Tokyo Afterschool Summoners, which we call Housamo, is a gay little gambling machine, where instead of gambling for things that matter like money, you gamble for dumb PNGs of characters from myth and folklore, but they're drawn by someone who visits E621. And as unbelievable as it sounds, these dumb little PNGs tend to be pretty good reinterpretations of the things they're referencing, so why don't we go through a few of them just for fun. First, we'll do Jack Frost, one of the newer guys. If you've ever played Shin Megami Tensei or ever watched that one movie with a Tumblr twink, Rise of the Guardians I think, you should recognize this guy since they're all based on the same thing. Jack Frost is a personification of winter. Think of Scotty, Dead Moroz, or even some interpretations of Santa Claus. Jack Frost are specifically associated with frost, you know, that thin layer of ice you see on cold mornings on grass and windows and stuff. In Housamo, he was fittingly made a polar bear who attends the Santa School. Okay, I know the Santa School might sound insane to those that haven't played the game, but to be fair, it also sounds like that to people who have played the game, so are just going to ignore that. What I actually like most about Jack Frost is how they interpreted his sacred artifact as, well, it's not exactly a can of spray paint, but rather the spray paint is a medium he uses to make graffiti with the frost. And the game also notes that his graffiti is red and orange in color, a reference to depictions of Jack Frost painting leaves and stuff as the reason foliage changes color in fall. I'm not exactly sure why they chose to make him a delinquent punk though, but it is appreciated. Spinning the wheel again, we have Mephostophles. Oh lordy, it's time for some lore. One of the many worlds in Housamo is Gehenna, although it should probably be Gehenna since Gehenna is the Greek pronunciation while the latter is the Hebrew one, and the latter would just make more sense considering it is the Hebrew Bible's hell. The actual representative of the world is Lucifer, but due to complicated lore reasons I'm not really explaining right now, he was rendered indisposed. As such, his butler, Mephostophles, took the wheel as the acting representative in Tokyo. If you're kinda sorta maybe cultured, you should know that he's based on a character from the same name from an old story called Faust. It's a story about a doctor who makes a deal with the devil for worldly pleasures. Notably, the Mephi in Housamo appears to be based on the most famous version of the story. I say this because in the traditional story, Faust actually goes to hell, but in Goth's play and Housamo's version of the story, Faust finds some way to escape his condemnation. Something that in Housamo, Mephostophles is still mad about. It's noted that due to the odd nature of his master and the escaped soul of Faust both being indisposed for the same reason, a loophole is formed which allows for both Mephostophles and Housamo's mascot to exist at the same time. This actually would be a good time to get into the mascot, but I'll admit I don't know what's going on with that whole situation, so I'm not even going to get near it. So we're moving on to something as equally cute and adorable, Inaba, the white-ish rabbit. He's got a serious pink tint going on, and his friend Shark, and I'm not fucking with you, that is evidently the thing's name. Inaba comes from the very famous Japanese folktale of the Hare of Inaba. To summarize the story, a rabbit wanted to cross to Cape Keta, so he asked the sharks which is longer, a chain of sharks or a chain of hares, and so the sharks lined up and he counted them as he went until the deception was revealed and the Hare of Inaba was flayed alive for it. Goddamn. The only person to help him was Okuninush, who told the poor rabbit to bathe in fresh water and roll around in cattails to restore himself. As thanks, the rabbit revealed himself to be a god and foretold that he'd be the one to marry a princess. I would say a very similar story played out in Housamo, but it's more like the exact same story played out in Housamo, like verbatim, even down to having Okuninush help him. Where they differ is that Housamo's version goes further past the end of the folktale, with Inaba and at least one of the sharks making up. I do like how Housamo referenced the part about the hare predicting he'd marry the princess by giving him magic fortune slips that are noted to be very good when predicting romance. It also explains how Valentine-y his design is, because this dude was actually released for New Year's of all things. And since I did mention him, let's actually get to addressing the whole mess that is Okuninush in Housamo, or as it goes by, Daikoku. Now, some of y'all may be asking, Fury, what the hell is that sprite? And all I'm gonna say to that is, be happy I picked the version where he's wearing clothes and not barefoot wearing nothing but a fundoshi. It's a whole situation where Okuninush is essentially possessing Daikoku using the power powers of this big guy, Mahakala. Does that sound like a lot of nonsense? Unfortunately for you and me, it isn't, so it's time for me to explain this again. Or I could just reuse a clip from one of my older videos. How delightfully devilish fury. Like take this guy, Daikoku. In real life, the Hindu god Shiva got turned into the Buddhist figure Mahakala, and in turn Mahakala got syncretized into Japanese Shintoism as the Shinto god Daikoku-ten. And the god Daikoku-ten himself was already syncretized with the figure Ohokuni-nushi. Why am I telling you this? Because Housamo actually makes use of it. In Housamo, we never truly meet Daikoku-ten because Ohokuni-nushi possesses the body of Daikoku-ten, referencing the fact that the two were syncretized into the same deity in real life. And he possesses that body using the power of Mahakala, referencing how the big guy got syncretized into Daikoku-ten in real life. And Mahakala himself is noted for existing across two worlds, Shangri-La and Devaloka, the worlds representing Buddhism and Hinduism respectively, since in real life, Mahakala is a deity in Buddhism and Hinduism respectively. My subs call me 007, 0 original jokes, 0 new subscribers, 7 reused assets. So there you have it. It sounds stupid, but it is just proof that Housamo puts a lot of effort into their characters. And since we're talking about characters that had a lot of effort put into them, let's just slide Hombre Tigra in right here. Did you know I actually made, well, not my second video, but it was the second video for when this channel found its footing. The honor of the first video made when this channel found its footing belongs to a certain piece of white bread that shall not be named. But anyway, Hombre Tigre is kind of like the Central and South American version of a werewolf, but instead of a wolf, it's actually a big cat. But what's actually more interesting is that Hombre Tigre isn't a tiger at all, rather it's far more likely he's based on a jaguar. Specifically, the Aztec jaguar god Tepehuatl, who was a servant to the smoking mirror Tezcatlipoca, the dark god of war, who would actually wear the jaguar as a disguise while he got up to mischief, something we actually see happen in Housamo. A fact that people are probably sick of hearing, but I will bring up yet again because I think it's super fucking cool, is that in one of the events we see Hombre Tigre do capoeira. Capoeira is a real martial art that was practiced by Brazilian slaves as a dance to disguise it from their masters. And it actually makes sense for Hombre Tigre to know this considering he works for Tezcatlipoca, who is the patron god of slaves. Now let's do Timujin, and some of y'all may be asking, what myth is this guy based on? You see, Housamo doesn't just do myths and folklore, but sometimes it does renditions of real people. And as much as I want to talk about how they made Alan Turing, you know, that gay guy who broke the Enigma code, got really mistreated by his country into a femboy twink, and no, I'm not making that up, look. I feel like the best example of this is this wolf guy because he's based on Genghis Khan. And that somehow has less weird implications than making Alan Turing a femboy twink. I really do hope you already know who Genghis Khan is, especially considering he's like one of the most famous people to ever live. And just in case you don't know, Genghis Khan is one of the world's most famous conquerors, whose Mongol empire was only outmatched in size by the British. He revolutionized Mongolia in horseback archery, fucked so much that his descendants are measured as a percentage of the global population, and eventually went on to be known as one of the greatest military leaders ever. Given how Housamo's Genghis Khan uses his birth name, you should be able to figure out that the one in game is from a time before he began his conquering. There are two cool facets to his character that I really like. One is that Timujin is terminally ill, a reference to how the real Genghis Khan died of illness, and two, as a reference to how often the real Genghis Khan got busy, it's noted that Timujin and others from the same world as him are noted to carry a blessing of fertility, meaning they can get anyone pregnant. And every time they specifically mention sex does not matter, because why wouldn't impreg exist here? And to round this video out, why don't we talk about my favorite character, because only what I like matters. That being Oz and Zoe, so this is a 2-for-1 special. Oz and Zoe are peculiar for being two transients sharing the same body. We have the shy and timid Oz, who through taking a sip of his sacred artifact, switches out to the bold and braggadocious Zoe. Respectively, Oz is based on the cowardly lion from The Wizard of Oz, and Zoe is based on the Nemean lion from Greek myth. It's actually noted that Oz himself doesn't have a strong enough foundation to exist and needs Zoe to not fade away, a reference to the fact that Oz is just a book character rather than being from a legend or folktale. And Oz and Zoe are noted to have a fatal end in the stars, referencing how the Nemean line is associated with the Leo constellation. And lastly, they're also noted to have a fear for grappling, a reference to the fact that a certain naked hero strangled the Nemean line to death. See? Oz and Zo are cool and awesome. I love them. We love them. We all love them. This seems as good a time as any to end the video, so why don't you like and subscribe while I move on to our Patreon shoutouts. For our 3 stars, we have special thanks to Choron, SkyKing64, 87 Warren, Galen Phasor, Channel Venomous, Arbun Cianate, The Good Old Days, and Stasi. For 4 stars, you have McCoides and Oddly Awe, The Golden Lie. And for Super D2 special 5-star shoutouts, we have Hodari Lion, The Overture. Like I said before, thank you for watching. Do be sure to like and subscribe. As always, this is Rose Fury, signing out.